So welcome everyone. Again, if you have a question, go ahead and put in the chat box, but this month's webinar is specifically really looking at data and how you can use data to improve your MEP program. And so I'm going to try to pay attention to the chat box as I go on this. So I have a poll right now asking you guys how important you think data is. And so most of you are saying you really feel like the data is important, which is good. We have a few that say that it's sometimes important, and then the access that a lot of you have to data, it seems like recruiter reports, M6 data, that needs assessment, and then there are a few of you that don't have a lot of access to data. So this will the idea is to kind of give you some idea of why data could be important, but at the same time also give you some sources that you can get even if you don't have access to a lot of your state data, that there's some really good information that you can get that will be helpful for you. And so let me go ahead and get started. So welcome. So we really feel like that everything that we do in migrant ed needs to be grounded in good data. So of course, every little action that you do, sometimes you're just going on what you feel like is the best thing. But if we have a general idea of the needs of, in all our different areas, it's going to help us. And so we need to identify real key sources and be able to use that information to ensure our programs are really designed in the best possible way. And so we're going to look at the different areas of MEP and data that you can use. And so some of you, I realize that you're just starting out, and so you may not have access to really very much data at all. And so you may be wondering, what kind of data am I even supposed to be getting, or where should I be looking? And then if you're a veteran, you may be wondering if there's something that other people are using that maybe you weren't aware of, or something that you saw before that you forgot, because there's a lot of different things out there. And so we're going to do kind of a refresher of some of those things. And then hopefully we found some brand new things. And so hopefully some of these will be new for everybody. And so starting out, we're going to look at the area of IDR because that's what we are. The IDRC consortium is really focused on, identification and recruitment. So a few things that we think that you really need data for are some real examples that would be helpful is listings of locations of places that you should be able to go to, a map. So if you're a supervisor, you want to make sure that you're helping your recruiters have this kind of map, that maybe it's a Google map or a batch geo map that lets them see where they need to go, what they need to really focus on. Maybe you're gathering information on associations and information of contacts that you should reach out in your state. Maybe you're looking at the data of where your recruiters are going and the contacts they make and the follow-up needed. Maybe you're looking at planning data that you're trying to decide how to prioritize what particular data you should be looking at what times, and using that to be able to help guide you. Then any data that you're gathering for IDR really should be the purpose to help prioritize recruiter efforts, help ensure and understand cycles of when agriculture is really happening in your state. You want to be able to find the actual locations of farms, fisheries, and agribusinesses, know where they are. You want to know what areas of your state seem to have the most chance of finding eligible students. Some of you have very limited resources, and so it would make sense to try to maximize your efforts to find the most possible kids first, and then be able to kind of go in these pocketed areas that you have to be able to find 1 or 2 or 5 or 10. You should know when you should be doing that. It shouldn't just be kind of a hit and miss, and that you show up at the end of a season. You should have known kind of when that season was. And then when your staff are out and about, you want to make sure that you're gathering information on what they're seeing. So everything that you could find online or research is only going to take you to a certain level, but your staff in the field should really be able to take that up a higher level to what they're actually seeing. And so there should be a lot more data that you get as recruiters are out in the field. Then you want to be able to take that data from recruiters and learn how to review it and use it and change your plans based on what you see from field staff in the field. And so these are kind of general things that a lot of you know, but if you're brand new, you may think, okay, where do I get started? And just interesting from OME last week, they had a couple slides that were saying this is some things that they think should be happening related to action plans. So states should have action plans, recruiters should have action plans. And so they included in that a statewide map of where migratory families live and work, a calendar with seasonal crop activities, profiles of major crops and employers, so data on those places that you need to go or the places that recruiters are visiting, recruiter resources for recruiting in schools, community, agribusiness, farms, and homes. So this is some of the same things that we've been saying, but I found it kind of fascinating that this was exactly what they put out last week. So this is obviously something that they're thinking that we should have. And then over on this other slide, it talks about that there should be a local action plan. So You may say, well, I don't work at the state, so maybe I don't have to worry about, but they're suggesting that there should be some action plans that will, like it says here, it should provide direction for local recruiters. It may be procedures on recruiter safety, on related contacts, could be a consolidated calendar that tells when to recruit in specific areas. So you see information like crop activities, housing availability, school calendars, etc. Maps or directions to major employers, agencies, and schools. So there was a question on whether we provide a PowerPoint. We always provide our PowerPoints. They're on our website on the front page. That's under the webinar page. And so this recording will be posted there and the PowerPoint will be there. So just keeping in mind that this is something that OME is going to want us to have. You can think of where we're going to get all this data from. And so then they had one more slide about action plans, and it was kind of what they call level 2. And it says, you know, what is another thing with action planning at the local level? Who to contact at specific farms, agencies, or schools. So again, dropping down all the way down to the actual person or the place, enrollment procedures for specific schools, hiring procedures used by individual employers, and any memoranda of an understanding between service providers. So I thought they're pretty clear on suggestions for, you know, what's related to action plans, which a lot of time ties back to data. So taking a look at this, where I always feel like it's helpful to have actual examples of, you know, places where you can get some of this data. And so I'm going to share some. Please don't feel like this is everything that's out there. I'm going to share a bunch with you, but you know, you're going to know of things that I'm not ever going to mention here, or you may have something that's very state specific. That's a resource that, you know, that you use for data, and we might not mention that. So this is just a, you know, just an example of some things that can be helpful. So a couple of things that we think everybody should know about is, I'm going to make sure that it's sharing with you when I pull off the slate. So out west, this is a big thing that can be really helpful. Out east, I haven't seen this used as much. In some places it is, but the Farm Labor Contractor Database. So there is a listing that the Department of Ag, not Department of Ag, the Department of Labor puts out, and I'm going to drop the link in here, for contractors. And so this was just updated on the 25th of March. No, this is last year, so they haven't updated it yet. So they should update it very soon. This is a listing of anyone that is approved as a farm labor contractor. So in some states, these are the people that are hiring the people that you see in the fields. In other states, you really have, they don't do a lot of farm labor contractors, and you may have to work more with farms. And so you can actually go right here and download a list of all of them, and then sort out which ones would be your state. And usually it has an address and has a phone number, and it is, you can reach out and call and talk to that person, find out when their crew's coming, how many people they're going to hire. And it's a really good place to kind of start with that in particular. So let me go ahead and go back to where I was. This is another one that we've been promoting like crazy. And so if you've heard a bunch of these, believe me, I'm going to share some that you haven't heard of, hopefully. But this is one that we came across, I think about a year or two ago, that is an actual meat and poultry inspection that the USDA does. So if you're wondering, let me drop this in here too, if you're wondering in your state, you know, where you're not sure if you have any agribusinesses that could be eligible, not all of these are going to be eligible, but they have a CSV. You can actually, you know, get the data files right here. So you click on this, and if you click on by established name, so this is any meat processing facility, any poultry, any egg production, they have to do inspections. And so they update this pretty often. And so you can go in, and then there's a little map that you can use to actually see it from your particular state. I find it's way easier to just download the Excel sheet, filter out what is your state, and then, you know, put it on a Google map so that you can see exactly what's in your area. Another really good resource that a lot of people, you know, can get a direct list for your state. I know most of you know about this one. And like I said, I promise there's going to be some that you are not aware of, but let me just give you a couple updates on this one. So we do have, let me go ahead and open this up. On IDRC, we have listing, we just updated them right here at the beginning of the month. So when you open them, if you use the old lists from a couple months ago, they haven't been updated. We have a new Google link in here, so you'll need to go back and click on that. So if I open this up, it's going to give me all of the, we basically got rid of like the history of all the H2A that was on there before. It was like anyone that was there last year and year before. This is just looking at this year. The ones in yellow at the top are always going to be your newest ones. And so we have these for every single state. If you look down and say, my state's not there, it's first the IDRC states. And when you go down below, there's everything else. Now, we do have a glitch in that we don't have a way to get a lot of the housing data. So there are some older maps for housing over here. And then with the same spreadsheet, we also have an IDRC map that we made. And so these are batch geo maps. If you open this up, it'll give you a chance to look specifically at, kind of play around with some of the data. You can go along over here on the side. Make sure I'm sharing this so you see this. Yeah. You can go over on the side and be able to look at, the total positions and then find all the ones that are your larger ones, and it'll list the information below. But one of the good things is when you look at this map, you can use it on your phone. If you have an iPhone, you can get the Batch Geo app and use it that way. If you have just a regular Android, you can use a little arrow and it'll just hook into your GPS. So we do these each month. Feel free to use these. Melissa has been working on those for everybody. So down at the bottom, though, I know that sometimes there's a question of, I wish I could see the full work order. We still use a lot of information from Spotlight. This is an awesome tool. If you're not aware of it, I'll just go through real quick, just for those that are brand new. Spotlight it puts all the H2A and H2B, whether they're eligible. There are a lot of H2B that are not eligible. It's a full listing, but you can put your state in here, and then it will let you be able to pick an area, and then it'll put, like, Moonlight Spas is not held for us, but you can find, whenever you open up one of these, it'll give you the information for the order for the H2A over there. And so you can look for your own area and play around with the Spotlight, and it's a pretty good tool. So Josiah says you can do H2A and B searches by state. Yeah. Oh, wow. I have not seen this one. What is this one? That's the cool thing of, yeah, I don't even know what this one is. Josiah, thank you for this. We'll post this for everybody. So this is housing. Very cool. Yeah, this is a new one for me. So very, very cool. That's the good thing about all of us trying to do something similar. If we come across something else, that can be super helpful. So I am going to bookmark this and make sure that we have it. So thank you for that. So if anyone else has a tool, we found Spotlight because somebody in South Carolina knew about it and told it in a training. And so a lot of times that's the cool thing about, collaboration. So very cool. That's a new one. I'll have to play around and see what that does. Okay, so moving on to start show you some that maybe you haven't seen before. There is also a USDA dairy processing. Now, dairy processing does not qualify for us, but how some places use this is they'll contact them and find out what dairies. They usually have a list of dairies that they get their milk from. And so they have an approved plant list of all the places, different plants that exist in the country. If you go all the way, if you keep scrolling down, and it'll give you the actual plant list and the name of them. So for those of you that are dairy states, or you just want, sometimes you can actually, find out who their processors are, and it'll give you a listing of dairies. This is kind of a roundabout way to get some of that information, but sometimes that can be helpful. So let me share another one. There is a national farmers market directory. Farmers market is another one of those roundabout kind of things where not every, a lot of times the farmers market will have a mom and pop. That's how they sell their produce or their food. But sometimes whoever's in charge of the farmers market is very aware of what's happening in agriculture in the community. And so you can talk to them and find out if, certain areas of the county have more ag than the others. They're pretty open to sharing names of places and information. So sometimes it can be a really good resource to kind of look at. And USDA has a directory of a whole bunch of different kinds of, they have a farmers market directory. They also have like a CSA directory. They have a local foods directory. They have an on-farm directory. So these are all directories that will just give you more information about the types of agriculture that's in your state. And so, like, here's the local food directory. So it goes down and you can explore your local food by, just putting in specifically right here. Make sure, hopefully I'm sharing the right slide. You can go in here and put what you're looking for. Maybe you knew that there was an apple orchard in a certain place and you can't find it. And so you can go in here and look and put, apples, and then whatever location. I'm just going to put Washington, Indiana, and then see. So then it'll let you know kind of, is there a non-food market? Is it a CSA? Those kind of things. USDA has this available. So let me go back to my slides. There is one of our favorites is Manta. I think most of you are probably familiar with this. This one's a little bit weird though. So we always let everybody know that so Manta is a small business directory, but it's, if you look at it, it's just called manta.com. And it looks like this. And I find it a little bit cumbersome to try to just navigate, to try to get what I want. But if I do a Google search and I live in Tennessee, so I put Tennessee agriculture manta.com. So then it's going to give me everything that it has for this particular state. And so it says Manta has 15,222 businesses under agriculture in Tennessee. And then if I scroll down to the bottom of the page, it has this guide. And so it'll say, oh, you want to look at berry crops? Well, if you click on berry crops, it'll give me this stuff. And then it'll give me the names of the actual berry places that are available. And so I can click on this England Strawberry Farm and it'll tell me this is categorized under strawberry farms. Current estimates show this company has an annual revenue of 47,000 and employs a staff of approximately 2. So Manta is, I don't know if it's an acronym or not. It's just manta.com is how I find it. But I can't get all this information unless I do that agriculture state. Now you can also do that by town. So if you go down below and you'll see that it'll say, oh, you wanted to look at blueberry farms. Would you like to see which cities they have? So Portland may have one, Ottawa may have one. So just remember, if you go back, you'll have this whole big, here's all the ag that they have for us in the state of Tennessee. And maybe I want to see the hatcheries, or maybe I want to see the nurseries. So I can click on that and then I can see it by city. And so what we did for a lot of the IDRC states was actually pull these and copy it and put them in Excel sheets. So they had robust lists of possible places that they could do. One of the most helpful things I think is that you can actually, so Josiah says we scrape their data to create Google Maps. Exactly, that's exactly how we use it. And so you can click on these and kind of see if the business knows about it, they'll get rid of their annual revenue and rid of their employees because they can create their own profile. But this is a super helpful, and you can go in and see how many employees. It's based off business records. So sometimes you'll show up and it'll be a house and you'll say, well, this is not the kind of thing that I was looking for. Remember that many small businesses don't have a separate office. And so it very much could be, that they're tied to that agriculture, or it could be that they have a very small amount of their income that's related to agriculture, but on some sort of tax document, they still are listed with agriculture. So something helpful to remember, just kind of, check those out as that's, helpful for you. There is, there's an association of Department of Ag reps, kind of like we have NASME. There is, they call it a NASDA, and these are the Department of Ag reps for each state. And so they have a directory. And so sometimes they put out publications. Let me put this in the box here. That basically you can, these are people that work with all the Department of Agriculture in all states. And so sometimes they put out things that are really helpful to know. Sometimes it may be just giving you a link of who you should talk to for your particular state. And so you can learn more about it. So this is just the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. And so they put out a lot of publications that can be helpful. And so let me go up. Let's see. Sarah says, use my maps and upload a spreadsheet with names. And okay, so somebody probably asked how to do a Google map. We do have on the IDRC website, if you're wondering how on earth we keep talking about maps, I'm just going to show you where it's at. On the YouTube channel, I'm sure that we have how to do Google Maps in here somewhere. I'm absolutely sure of it. I just have to look through here and find the Google Maps. Try to see if I can find it myself. But basically, you can go in here and we've got training on it. Let's see if I just. No, it's going to take me all over. But we do have training on there that you can specifically use to learn how to do the maps. We also have specifically at the Summer Recruitment Institute, we're going to do some more trainings on that. So that'll be coming up soon. Thank you, Melissa. She's got the training right there. Could not find it. Okay, so next one, there is a National Nursery and Seed Directory. So this is a helpful one if you depending if you have a lot of nurseries in your state. This is one that I don't think we put out before. We just found that recently. So they're specifically looking for places that sell forest and native plant materials to, to the United States. And so you can go ahead and here. So it says, Josiah says you can select the whole search results from the Manta webpage and copy. Yes, exactly. So you have, you pull the strawberries, all the strawberries up, and you can copy and paste it. You just have to clean it up afterwards. And so that's what we did for those of you that are IDRC states. We did a lot of that work for you. If you're not, that's what we did, and you can go ahead and do that yourself. So they do have some maps also with this national seed directory here that you can kind of, see where their nurseries are. And so this can be helpful if you have that kind of, I'm not even showing it to you, sorry about that. So here's the listings. You can go in and go ahead and, see all the locations. And then there is a map of those locations also. And so you can feel free to use those. There's also a native plant directory. And so this is another one. That's the one I just showed you. Hold on, let me go back. Actually, I have it listed twice under two different names. So this is the NATO, both of those are the same thing. And so that is what's on that one. All right, next ones. If you're a fishing state, so there is a ton of, this is one area that we really feel like, we haven't really explored. There are a ton of different places that we could work with, that states that have a lot of fishing. You might not be aware of what fishing you have. There is an East Coast Shellfish Association. And if you click on these, let me see if I can, hold on, kind of give you an example of what this looks like. A lot of these are specific to specific regions, but they have a lot of their listings, their grower resources where you can buy things, and different ways, for shellfish. And so it says here, they represent over 1,500 shellfish farmers from Maine to Florida. And so this agency is a pretty big agency, for resources with that. They're also, let me share another one. There is the National Aquaculture Association. And so some of you may, you may have you may be land bound and not have any oceans or rivers around you, but this is anything related to aquaculture. And so they have, listings and information about, things that are going on there, their locations. And so you can learn more from that. There is a Pacific Coast Shellfish Growers Association. So we did like the East Coast. And so we want to make sure that we share some of also, we're sharing all sides here. And so these are things that we're trying to grow more resources that we're aware of. And so if you're a fishing state, this can be something that's pretty helpful for you. And then in addition, there is also a US Aquaculture Society, and there is a seafood inspection processing list. So this is helpful for us. These are participant lists of all the firms, facilities, and places that process any sort of seafood. And so it's kind of a weird little list. It'll tell you where they are and what they do. I'm just trying to get me to buy something. And you can kind of see for your particular state what there are. So it lists the different types of shellfish and kind of who sells it. And so it's not as helpful as an Excel sheet, but definitely something that you can check out if you're a fishing state and you want to make sure that you're aware of all the processing facilities. Let's see, let me go back to my other slides. Another thing that we have shared this with a lot of states, but in case you're not aware of this, sometimes that your states, you're not really sure how to prioritize or how to know what crops are available in all of your places. Or let's say you just got a new region that you're responsible for and you're not really sure. This is one of our absolute favorite places to start out with. And so we do a ton of work where states will say, can you help us to know what we should do in this area or this area? And this is one of my absolute favorite places to start. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what this looks like. If you are familiar with this, if you can, feel free to share how you use it. So there is a census of agriculture that comes out every 5 years. So the next one will be filled out this year and will be coming out hopefully next year. But you can go in here. Let's see, someone give me a state in the chat box. We'll just see whoever types first. Okay, Pennsylvania. Josiah's he's ready. So you click on Pennsylvania. When I open this up, there's a bunch of different reports that are available. But you can see the whole state report, the whole county report. What I like are the county profiles. So this exists for every single state. So let me drop back where I was so everybody can do this if you want on your own state, if you want to pull it up. Maybe too much for you to pull up at the same time, but feel free. So let me go to Pennsylvania, and now Pennsylvania people, give me a county. York. It's ready. All right, click on, so I'm going to, oh, wrong thing. So there, I'm going to go here to the state and county profiles, and then I'm going to look for York. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen. Yep. So this looks a little weird at first. You can think, what on earth am I supposed to do this? Let me make sure it's plenty big that you all can see. So the way that we read these anyway would be the idea of these county profiles are going to give you a quick summary of what they found out from the ag census. And so over here, it'll first tell you the number of farms and the change. So maybe between 2012, 2017, sometimes it seems like there's going to be massive change, but you can look between 2012 and 2017, there was a minus 5% in the number of farms. So there was a decrease, but it wasn't like 85%. So you guys can kind of follow along that trending data and it'll give you a good idea. But if you start noticing that numbers are really going down and you're wondering, this can be a good place to kind of see if you think you're, if you're crazy or if the data shows you that, yes, there's a 5% decrease. There was a 5% decrease in land and farms, and there was a little bit of an increase in the size in farms. So that's just general information. It doesn't give me a ton, but it gives me a little bit to start thinking about. Over here on the side, it's going to say this particular county is 52% crops, 48% livestock, poultry, and products. So some of the Midwest states, it'll almost be, Texas and, it's not Midwest, but some of the states that are real big on meat processing and have a lot of, cattle or specific, broilers, things like that, will be way higher in their livestock and poultry. So it'll give you a quick idea of what's happening. Then it'll let you see the total value, things were up. There was a big increase in income compared to what it was in 2012. And then it kind of gives you everything looking kind of positive right there. What I like to look at is this number of farms that are over 100,000, that are making over $100,000. Because if you're not making that much, you're not going to have a lot of money to have extra employees around. So you have 17% of the farms in this particular county make over 100,000 or more. So that's good. That gives you a better idea of, okay, there's some larger farms. This should be helpful. Then I can look over here on the side and look at the acres. There are 41 farms that are over 1,000 acres. That could literally be all corn and soybeans or something like that. But it's also good to note, where are those really large farms? Is there anything of note for MigrantEd? You scroll down to the next page. And what I like to do here is the very first thing, York County would be number 6 in the state as far as the amount of agriculture, how they're compared to other counties. So if I had multiple counties, I would literally print these sheets for all of them and compare which one was ranked higher. So I like to scroll down really quick and look for high numbers. So the first thing I see is they are, I need to turn my phone off. Sorry. And one of my children is calling me, so let me turn that off. So here it says that horses, ponies, mules, burros, and donkeys, they're number 1 in the state. That might not be helpful for us to even know because, how many of those things are going to be eligible for us. But you can look up here and see number 1 also in cultivated Christmas trees, short rotation woody crops. So I'm going to look at these ranks. They're ranked number 2 in grains, oilseeds, dry beans, and dry peas. Number 4 in crops in general. Number 10 in the state in livestock and poultry. So this should be a big ag county. I don't know what, Josiah, how big your migrant numbers are, but from what is here, it looks like there's a decent amount. So you would think there's a little bit of tobacco here. There's some vegetable, melons, potatoes, sweet potatoes. There's going to be some vegetables and fruits. There's some fruits, tree nuts, and berries. There's a little bit of everything, but you're ranked pretty high in the state. So you would be able to see, that this is a good county. This has got, and then it'll look here. It'll also tell you your rank in the US. So it'll say, okay, rank in state is number 6. How many other counties are producing the same things they are? 67, they're ranked number 6. And rank in the US is 342. I was working with a state recently where they were ranked number 6 in the US. And so, that's a lot of ag in a specific area. Theirs was a big dairy area. So then you can look down a little bit below and it says percent of farms that hire farm labor, 22%. And you can see how many sell directly to consumers. So it just gives you a little bit more information. So this for us is a place that we really like to go and get information. It exists for every single state, every single county. Now, this is from 2017. It will be updated the next time there is an agriculture census, which is every 5 years. And so then you can see. So yeah, so that's just a good good place to start. So everyone should be able to use those. And so here's an example of, but I would print them and rank them and organize them and then look at the data, and then you can get a lot more data. So I could use Manta, for example, if I knew that we had cotton and I didn't know where it was, I could do, Tennessee, cotton, Manta, agriculture, and then I could get a listing of those places and it would actually let me see that. So one other really awesome tool that that most people should know about if they're, to save a little bit of time, the USDA also did this last time around. They did this, this quick query tool. And let me go ahead and drop this in the chat box and put this here. So this query tool, it basically takes everything. You can look at US data, but I like to look at the state and county data. And so you look at you can say, I want to look at the census information, state and county. And then this is only one of the few places you can actually find this, the number of hired farm labor workers. So we'll see who's quick here. I need a state and a county. The very first one, whoever gets it in. Idaho. Okay, I need a state and county together. So whoever has the first state and county. Okay, so I have, Rosemary said, okay, now there's tons of them, so I'm just gonna pick one. Arkansas, Benton, I think was one of the first ones. So we'll look at the state. We'll go ahead and put Arkansas, and then we're gonna choose Benton. If it lets me, yes. Now, as soon as I do this, I update the grid, make sure I'm sharing the thing. So when you look at this, it'll say, the very first thing that happens, it'll say labor hired operations with workers. So in Benton, Arkansas, there are 460 operations that say they hire workers. Of those, 197 say it's only one worker. 131 say it's two. I like to go higher where it says 10 or more. There are 7 locations that say they have 10 or more. Then it says the total number of hired workers is 1,175. So the same as the county profiles, the same as there, I like to rank this to look at my numbers of farm workers. And then there's more information like how many days they work, the number of workers that work a certain amount of days. And so you can kind of play around with that. So this exists for every single state. So this website that I am on is, let me pull it right here. This is, you can find it by just Googling ag census, in case I'll just show you, ag census query tool. And then when you do that, it'll take you to the Census of Agriculture, and you'll see all this other stuff where it says sign up for the Census of Ag. And then if you scroll down, there are also some web maps and a bunch of other things, but right here is where the query tool is. And so you can find it that way. Okay, moving on, go back. So there are a lot of other ag listings. That's just a quick one of several important ag listings that'll give you drill down to either big picture data that you can use or drill down all the way down to actually find a place. We suggest that you really, become a professional Googler, and that you can think of the keywords like I just mentioned with Manta, the name of the site, the year. Maybe you're looking at, Tennessee agriculture, nursery listings, or, PDF directory, things like that will help you find those things quicker. And so you want to make sure that you're searching, that you learn to search pretty effectively so that you can see if those things exist. So now we're going to look at housing. There is a searchable database of affordable housing. Now, of course, this is not letting you know that this is directly migrant housing. But one of the things that we found over time is that, the cheaper the housing is, the easier it is for migrant families to have access. And so this is a national affordable listing kind of searchable database that you can go to. And so I'll throw this into the chat box. You can see it, and then I'll share my screen. So you can basically put your location, so maybe I'll put where I live. If I click on here, it's going to give me places that I can find. Let's see if it gives me. It may give me, should give me more than just housing authorities. It'll have and say like, okay, apartments in these different ones. It'll give me, searches that you can find for that particular one. And so this is just a general affordable housing one. There also is another one that we've shared several times. Let me see if I can, that if you just want to be able to, this is a national and I know we've shared this recently to a bunch of people, but if you haven't heard about it, it's a national trailer park directory where you can actually view a map of them, or you can download the information. And so let me close some of my screens. This is a helpful tool for states that are, want to add your maps where you want to put some housing locations. This is a really good tool that exists. Or there actually is a searchable database that's already made from that you can see right here, that you can go in and kind of put your zip code in and see what kind of trailer park is available. I would not put a lot of amenities, but a lot of times they'll come up and it'll specifically show you places that are available that you can see. Okay, looking for any comments in case anybody has questions, but these are two really good references for housing. There's also things like rent.com that you can go in and search, and it'll let you put the amount that you want to spend for the rent, and then you can see kind of the cheaper places or the places that have vacancies. A lot of the cheaper rent that has vacancies sometimes will be good places that families might be able to find easily. Housing can be really tough, and so if there are some vacancies, that might be a good place to reach out and ask and see if they know of anything. So then we have moving on to student data. So I know several of you on the poll mentioned that you have access to M6 data. So we really feel like some of the data is not going to be searchable online. It's going to be things that you can gather yourself. And so you've got if your state is gathering the required data elements, you already have really good information about student course data, student testing data. You can also get information from schools as far as like attendance rates and report card data. Sometimes we find that states are doing a really good job on the state level of getting their needs assessment and their service delivery plan all together, but it's not trickling down all the way to the local district. So the local district, for example, could be tutoring with the student and the instructor hasn't seen any of their grades. They're just, tutoring in math because they know they need help in math. So it's really important that, that data that's gathered, even like needs assessment data on your state level, that all involved have a chance to see what kind of needs they're seeing statewide. But a lot of this stuff is things that you can gather yourself. So you want to make sure that you're not just putting it in M6, you're putting it into M6 and you're using it for your own program efforts to make sure that you're able to really, show, see the needs and see what's happening. So it says here, a process of how to use the data, student and family. So you want to make sure that any data that you're gathering on your families and your students helps you understand the needs of the individual student and family. So of course we have the minimum data requirements that are required, but you want to make sure that you're using those, that you take a look at any of this data that you're gathering to really ensure that your supplemental services are really meeting those needs. So it says, continue to find data that helps you understand the needs of your specific population in general, as well as individually. Gather, update, and review that data frequently. So I realize some of you on the call are not recruiters. You may be data specialists, you may be supervisors, you may be doing direct services to families. So you want to make sure that you have access to any of that data that's been gathered. Of course, you can have access to all of it, but that you're working with whoever is above you so that you have the appropriate amount of data that would be helpful to you to guide your efforts. So there's also things that are related to needs or mobility data that you can get directly from migrant families as you're out and about with them. So this can give you, like it says here, this can help you in your understanding of your area, where people are coming from, what their needs are. A lot of these things can be gathered directly from families. And then there's also ways to do some research to see some bigger picture items that might help you see. And so we're going to share some of those things. So this here, I'm going to put this in the chat box, make sure I'm sharing it. So I'm going to show you just a few interesting things of maybe you're not really sure what's happening in your area. Maybe you're just wondering if the numbers look, similar. This is from the Migration Policy Institute. They have a U.S. immigrant population by state and county. So maybe you're seeing some new populations of immigrants, new families that, new languages, and so you can actually go in and, look under United States. Let me see if I can find it. I can read. Sometimes they put the U.S. right in the beginning, which they probably did. Nope. Of course, then I won't be able to find it. Usually you can select the country, like here you can see by the US immigrant population. You can click on these and see the counties that are specifically here. And so you can go into the county itself and it'll give you the information as far as what they're seeing in this particular. So it says like Florida immigrants. Oh, okay, now I've realized it's the opposite way. You can take a look at the country of origin. So maybe you have a population that's coming in from Africa. And then it'll tell you where they're seeing the largest population, where they're going to in different states. And so maybe you have, you say, I want to see all those that are coming from Mexico. And so you can click on here. Of course, you're going to see, and it's going to show you which places. But you can also look at all different countries in the world, and it's between 2015 to 2019. So the latest data is not too far off, but it's going to give you an idea of just immigrant populations in different places. So that's just one little tool that you can see. There are also some really fascinating tools that they have. And so they have, like, in this same, let me just open this up. Make sure I'm sharing it with you. Let me open this too. This is Migration Policy Institute's, some of their interactive maps that they have. So they have the US immigration population by state and county. So you can actually go in and look specifically, by each county, which is the one I just showed you. And then they have where the DACA students are, where ELL students are, dual language learners by state. So just some things that you can kind of look at of what's happening specifically that might be kind of helpful for you to see. There is another one called something called the Opportunity Atlas. And so some of these things, like if you ever have to write grants, a lot of times they'll ask you to give a lot of demographics of what's happening specifically in your county or what. And so some of these things that I'm sharing with you are helpful for that. But other times it can just be for you to just better understand the communities that you're working with. And so this Opportunity Atlas is kind of an interesting tool that you can check out. This, some of it may be helpful, some may not be, but it's the idea that you can go in and you can start exploring a community and get to know a little bit more about the community. So it'll let you know the median rent, it'll let you know how much job, let you know the job growth, let you know the average, school completion rate. And so you can click on these and just see, like here in the South, for example, it's talking about where there's areas where there's more, the household income. You can see, where does it change here, depending on where you're clicking. Yeah, a lot of low income right around, I'm right here. And I mean, a lot of it is very low income. And so it's just kind of interesting to check out kind of what's happening in your community. Right now my computer sounds like it wants to be an airplane. So then there's some really interesting tools about where people are moving and when are they moving. And so this is a new tool that's available that you can kind of see here. So here's an example of what it looks like. Let me make sure. And it kind of shows you this map of where people are coming and going. And so I'm going to kind of play around with it. My computer doesn't go crazy. And I'll drop it in the chat box for everybody to play with it if you want. And so you can kind of click on different areas and see here. It'll tell you the people, it says the people that moved here, most came from outside the United States. So this is pretty recent. So let's say you're seeing movement and you're wondering, all of these pink ones across the country, if I'm sharing my slides, right? Okay, I wasn't, here you go. So if I click on the pink, it says, okay, in this particular area, it's telling me in Hamilton County, Iowa, of the people who moved here recently, most came from outside the United States. So if I go to, you click on a yellow one, it says Carroll County, Mississippi, most of the people moved here came from the Midwest. And so it says, does this immigrant map also count families who are not promoting that they don't have visa or refugee status? Not really sure. That would be something that you could, definitely. I think most of them are coming from census records. So it would depend on what they put in the census record. And that a lot of this is based in, specific demographics that they gather from that. So I felt that this might be helpful. I don't know if I'm reaching, but sometimes you see movement and you're wondering where people are coming from. And so these green ones, it'll just say in Union County, Arkansas, the people who moved here, most came from the South. So you can kind of see where movement is happening. You click up in these yellow areas up here. It says in Roberts County, South Dakota, most of the people came here from the Midwest. So it shows you a little bit of movement that, that's available there. So I find it interesting. I feel like sometimes it just helps me better understand the communities and where I may, that there are a lot of these kind of resources that are available from the census information. And so here's an example of some of these, some of these Living Atlas resources that are available. I'm going to go ahead and put these in the chat box. So this is, medium household income, people who are of the same race, some other race in the United States, population of 2 or more races, poverty stares. There's just a ton of them, race and Hispanic origin variables, but it'll give you these maps so you can kind of see, see what's happening. So some of these I find are really helpful to be able to look at. Some of them, it may be something I only looked at once or twice. Some of these things are things that you come back to, frequently. So it just depends on, what what you're looking for and what kind of information you're needing in your state. So make sure I'm opening the right thing. Okay, so an example of one of those ones that I was using. Let me see if I can open this. Make sure I don't lose everybody. No, it doesn't want to open. Here we go. Make sure I share this. So this is a map that lets you see different languages that people speak and where they're coming from. And so let me drop this in the chat box. I'm going to play around with it. And then you can click on it and it'll tell you a particular county, and it'll say, okay, in Catoosa County, Georgia, in this area, 2.3% of the population aged 5+ speak Spanish. But then it may be like, for example, in Tennessee, there was an area out towards where we used to have a whole bunch of families. It says 16% speak Spanish. Not every migrant family speaks Spanish, but this was a helpful tool to be able to say, I wonder where my pockets of different language speaking families are. Like this one, for example, says 18%. This was a very large area for us for migrant families at one point. So this is just saying census information gives you, so you can kind of play around and see where pockets of different language speakers are in your state. And so for us, this was a helpful tool. Then there's general things that you can gather, like most of you, I'm sure, are all familiar with the OSY profile. And so you can find that on the ISOCI site. There also is, this is an example of Vermont did something similar with family profiles. And so they said, well, we have the OSY profile, but they also have a family profile where they really look at their needs of the family. Do they need food stamps? Do they have health insurance? Are they involved in an after school program? Do they need WIC resources? Do they need translation and interpretation? And so they have someone going in and kind of doing this assessment. And so data can also be gathered that way. You can see, if are any of the kids, says I'm breaking out a little bit. Probably my computer. Let me close some of these things. Sorry, let me close a bunch of these extra ones. That's what happens when I put too much stuff on my computer. But anyway, the profiles can be something that can be super helpful for you to get direct data directly from families. And then, you may see that they all need something, some particular, I closed the whole thing, hold on. Sorry about that. It's the great thing about technology. When it works, and then it doesn't. Let me scroll down to where we were. Okay, so this particular one, and let me know if you can hear me better, if that helps. So this particular one, you can kind of see the data that you could gather from that and what you can do with that. And so we really suggest that you're looking at data, outside data sources, you're looking at your families to see how you can do that. And so here's just a few things to think about. So general things with MEP program data. Do you run a review of your recruiters' efforts and make sure that recruiters are in the right areas? Sometimes I've heard that staff will say, well, we have a recruiter in this particular area, but they've only found about 30 people all year. Now, I know we don't do quotas and I don't do numbers like that, but you want to make sure that you have enough to justify a position. So maybe you don't have them in the right spot. Maybe they need to be 2 counties over, or maybe. So do you have recruiters keep reports, and do supervisors review these reports? So I'm a big believer in reports, but in the sense that if a recruiter does a report, somebody should be reading that, and it should be of data that's relevant, that helps kind of show time and effort, but also is relevant data that can help you in the future. Do the reports show what they're doing, who they're contacting, what information they're finding out? So recruiters, if you're not required to do a report, maybe these things will be helpful for you for your own position to be able to remember who you're talking to. Do you pivot and try new things? If recruiters are not finding enough families, do you find a way to help support them? If you're a supervisor, can you support your staff in the field? Do you understand their work and how to help them? Because the data is not going to make sense in some senses unless you understand the positions of what they're doing. Do you gather, surveys from schools of possible eligible students and then follow up with them? Do you have some sort of system that really helps you look at the data of what you're finding? Do you ensure that all those family surveys are completed? Do you track, follow up of any, this is a whole nother side of data of families of needs when you meet with them. Do you have data to show that there's a correlation between your program efforts and student growth? That can be challenging. In real time, are you able to get student report cards and really get that data and help that drive, whether it's reports, to really see? And so we really, it says, Kathy Rodriguez says, we have a recruiting efforts database where recruiters enter data. Yeah, you want to have some way that you're gathering those efforts. So in talking in kind of summary, I've been talking about all different kinds of data that you can use. We want to make sure that data helps inform your decisions, whether it's IDR, whether it's student services, whether it's family needs, and that the sources of your data are relevant and high quality, and that they'll help you directly understand your population. Maybe it's their needs, maybe it's understanding how your program is doing, maybe it helps you find that, that location data that you need to know where your migrant students are working, or their families are working, or where they're located. But you just want to make sure that you have a robust way to ensure that you're getting the data that you need. And so I think we have like 10 minutes here. If there's any comments or questions, if not, we'll finish. But is there anything that anybody uses specifically that they have been found has been really helpful related to data? And I'm going to put our evaluation in the chat box because we always have to have that. And then I'm going to show you something real quick before we. But any comments, anything that anyone has used that you think maybe it's a source for, particularly for finding families, or maybe it's a family needs survey or something that you used. If anyone has any comments on that, they can put those in the chat box. It says if you have a good relationship with a school, getting access to their student portal can be super helpful. Yes, very much so. So those are definitely really key things to do. So here's our evaluation. If you guys will fill that out, or to use your QR code if you want. Jacqueline says, thank you for sharing. Well, I'm overwhelmed in the best way by the sheer number of resources you shared. There are lots of things out there. We do want to also remind you that if you want to join us on May 23rd through the 27th, we're going to have our Summer Recruitment Institute. If you already are signed up, you can look at the agenda. The agenda is now up there. We'll be adding more things, but we have the basic agendas available for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then